welcome to Pebble Mill. What do you think of my nice red chariot, my little mini fire engine? In fact, it's the new look Lambretta, and certainly with petrol about to hit, what is it, £1 a gallon soon? It's not surprising at this talk now that the scooter is going to come back in fashion. Already they're very popular out east, and later in the programme we'll be taking a look at scooters for the 1980s.
But our old friend the Lambretta here certainly did. Not just a motor scooter, more really a piece of social history. It became popular in the 50s as a cheap form of transport, but by the 60s, if you remember, it had become the symbol of an entire generation. Along with the short haircuts and the long-tailed parkers, it was an essential part of the mod uniform. Well, not only is the Lambretta back in business, but it's about to become as big as it ever was. That's according to the experts, among them Mike Karslake here, who's the chairman of the British Lambretta Club. Vespers, Lambrettas have always been something very special to Mike, since he discovered them more than a quarter of a century ago, and really his life hasn't been the same since. Thanks for the little show of acrobatics, not recommended for the beginner, Mike.
We skidded there a bit, I'm afraid, on this wet road.
What really was the fascination in motor scooters for you? Because most kids really grew out of this period. You never did.
No, it's been a romance since 1952, in fact, when we first decided to buy one instead of a motorbike.
This one's looking a little bit tattered now, but it's had a good run for its money, isn't it?
Yes, this is the one that's been used on the Wolfie Smith, Citizen Smith programme, and it was intentionally tatty like this, but mechanically it's absolutely A1.
Well, let's go back to the very first Lambretta, Mike, which was this model, which was produced solely in Italy, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. This is the A model of 1947, and it never came into this country, in fact, but it was the very first, and possibly this is the only one left in the world today.
Now, what was the feeling among rival engineers in the motor industry when that thing came out?
Well, the motorcycle people in those days, they weren't called agents or dealers, I don't think. They preferred to be called motorcycle engineers, considered it as something as a gimmick, and in fact, they were very reluctant to take them on in the first place.
Gimmick, why? I mean, it's become a little more sophisticated by this time.
Well, yes, the C model of 1950 was the machine that came into this country in small numbers in 1950-51. And the reason, I think, was that it had a shaft drive and it had sort of car-like qualities, which other motorcycles, well, if you can call it a motorcycle, didn't have at that time.
Now we're getting more towards the shape that a lot of people are going to recognise. What period is this?
Well, this is 1950 again, and really it's the closed-in version of the C model.
Yes.
And as you see, you can put a spare wheel on it. There's been this recess put into the side panels to lower the spare wheel. The engine was hidden from view, so you could get it as dirty as you like, but of course you could polish it like a car, and there was plenty of weather protection.
In fact, it was called the car on two wheels, wasn't it, around this time?
Yes, the car having two wheels instead of four, yes.
Right, now we're going a little further, still in the 50s.
Well, yes, still in the 50s, and of course, as you see, this is a progression from the C model over there, but this was known as the D model, and probably one of the most popular Lambrettas, along with its counterpart, the LD. It's an update on the C model, a shaft drive again, crown wheel and pinion, but this was the cheap, undressed model, whereas this one, you see, was the dress version, and the LD in its most sophisticated form.
Was this anything like the one you first bought when you were the, what, 159th owner of a Lambretta in the country?
Yes, something like that. No, the LC was the one that we bought, and then we had subsequent LDs, and this, in fact, was the final version of the LD in 1957. So, you know, it was getting pretty sophisticated. Before we leave that, in fact, the D model did climb Ben Nevis in 1957, so, you know, there's a little bit of upmanship there for you.
Oh, goodness, yes. No, upmanship is probably the word. Now it's become a little more stylised, but this actually didn't go down that well, did it, that one?
No, it didn't. This was a Super Starstream. There were various versions of this, but they decided to go back to the frame with the panelling on it. This was a pressed steel monocoque body. It's a very nice little machine, but it wasn't really as good as the previous frame machines.
Let's have a look at the Vega here, the racing model, because it used to race at the Isle of Man, didn't it?
Yes.
And reach speeds of what?
Well, this reached a speed of 86 miles per hour along the back straight at Snetterton.
And since you're so low and on such small wheels, you must have felt like 186 miles an hour, do you think?
Well, the small wheels, of course, gave this terrific safety factor to scooters. By lowering the centre of gravity, of course, it was a very stable machine. And this one has many records to its credit.
Do they still race now?
Yes, they still race now, but not in the Isle of Man.
No.
And of course, this wasn't my era of racing. I used to use the one that you saw me come in with the sidecar on, and in fact, that machine took me to Istanbul in 1962 on a road trial.
My goodness, I hope the sun was shining all the way.
Well, it was better than this.
Well, here we are up to present day. This is the new Lambretta, which is not, in fact, assembled in Italy. Tell me very briefly how the Lambretta has come back.
Well, the Italian machine finished in 1970, 71 time due to political unrest and strikes and that sort of thing at the factory at Innocenti in Milan. And then a couple of years afterwards, all the equipment was sold to the Indians, who set up a new factory in Lucknow. They used this Bertoni-designed GP200. They've put 12-volt lighting on it, a new exhaust system, and of course you've got this beautiful piece of equipment that you see here.
How much will that cost now, Mike? Because I'm seriously thinking of getting rid of the car and getting something a bit cheaper.
Well, you need to with this petrol shortage coming along. Well, you'd pay about £450 for a machine like that.
How many miles to the gallon?
You'd get about, getting on for 100 with driving with a bit of care, and if you don't drive with a bit of care, you'd get about 70 miles an hour out of it.
You firmly believe that it's about to be revived, do you?
Well, there's no doubt about it. It's definitely on the way back, yes.
Well, let's just go back in time for a moment, have a look at this rather unusual one. Now, what is that, a rickshaw?
This is the Lambretta rickshaw, and it was designed by Gear, as you see by the little name down here, which a lot of people think is a gimmick today, but this was one of Gear's first projects. They do the Ford range of cars now today, of course.
Designed, obviously, for sunnier climates.
Well, yes, it certainly was designed for sunnier climates. The hood comes down, you've got the wickerwork basket seat in the back there.
Real collector's item there.
Oh, yes, yes.
Well, finally, Mike, the fire engine. And tell me a little bit about this, because you found it in,
well, along
rather inauspicious circumstances.
Well, in fact, the rickshaw I also found on a dump.
Would you like to climb in while you're explaining this one?
And likewise, I found this on a dump. And it was a gimmick, really a publicity gimmick. They did these chassis and cabs and made all sorts of types of vans, pickups and that sort of...
Three-wheelers. Well,
yes.
I think we'll better take a little ride, why not?
Right.
I should think your collection must be worth a few bob now, isn't it?
I wouldn't know how much it's worth. It's certainly unusual, isn't it? But,
tell me, after all these years, are you still fascinated by them?
Oh, yes. I think they're wonderful. I really enjoy them. There's plenty more to collect, of course. But I hope we can be heard above this noise, but the noise is quite exciting as well, isn't it?